Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to my office hours. Welcome to my office. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed the pre-show trivia. Although it's the randomizer doesn't look random enough for me. I've seen a couple of those questions a couple times now. So what I really need is some more trivia questions, I think. So if you see this link down here, right down here, submit trivia. Oh, whoop, my finger. Right there. Submit trivia. I would love it if you went there and submitted some interesting tech, developer related trivia questions. That would be tremendous. I've gotten a few submissions already, and those are great. I appreciate that, but I could always use some more. It'd be fun. And you'll get full credit for it. It'll say submitted by whoever on there. I see Gamlor's hanging out already. Good to see you again, Gamlor. Thanks for being here. But let's get into it. This is 79. This is office hours. This is my office. Welcome to my office. I'm going to do something similar I did on Thursday, reviewing a page of documentation. This will be one that's about getting started with Nickel, the query language, the SQL query language for Couchbase. So we're going to go and do that. This is all open source documentation, so you'll be able to see all my work and all my pull requests and all that kind of stuff that I do. And you can certainly help and provide comments and suggestions, or just hang out and lurk. That's totally fine. If you want to lurk, you can just hit the bang lurk command there. All right, and of course, if you have questions along the way, if it's related to the documentation, if it's kind of tangential, if it's just something that popped into your head, go ahead and ask. Feel free to ask questions in this channel. You're not going to get chastised for asking questions. There is no such thing as a stupid question here in my office, so ask away. All right, I am a member of Team Live Coders, and I'll bring up the team page here, twitch.tv/team/live coders, and here's a list of people who are streaming right now. So we see like C# Fritz. He started on a little earlier. I think I saw the email for that maybe an hour ago, something like that. And a bunch of other people streaming right now. It's a team of 161 people, and you can go to this page, see who's streaming right now. So you can always find someone who's streaming about coding and see what they're up to, see what our team's up to. And you can also see information here about if you want to join the team, see how to qualify, if the team's right for you, that sort of stuff. You can also learn more about the team, livecoders.dev. It's a good place to go. And here's a list of all the members. You can search, so I can just type in Groves, for instance, and there I am. And all the different things that I typically stream about. You can see Couchbase, C#, back-end stuff, right? And you can also, let's see, does this work with, it just filters by name. So anyway, this is a list of all the members. I think it's all the members. And then when the members submit their information, it'll show up here with little icons and tags of what they stream about. And another place you can find streamers is the Awesome Developer Stream. That's github/bnb/awesome developer streams. It's a big text file that contains a list of people who submit that are doing live coding, live streaming, where to find them, what they're streaming about. It's a great place to check out. And just do a Control F here, search for a keyword, and see who's streaming about that topic. All right, you can find old episodes of this Office Hours show. It used to be called Live Coding with Matt Groves, and I'm just calling it Office Hours, keeping it nice and short. But you can find all the old recordings here, bit.ly/GrovesTube. Go check it out. You can watch them at 2x speed if you want to. You can skip ahead, skip through different parts. You can leave comments, questions there on GitHub. Happy to answer those in the future. There's still a question that was answered in the comments, by the way. But there was a question about an old episode where I showed my podcasting process, which I haven't recorded a podcast of my own in a while, or edited my own podcast. But I still want to get to that. So it's just a small thing. I'll eventually get to it. It's just an Audacity tip. But that's the last question I've got in there. I've got some other comments. Seems like a lot of generic YouTube comments these days, like hello, can we be friends? A lot of that stuff's coming through, which is fine. It's not like it's spammy or anything, but a lot of that coming in. But if you have questions or comments, leave those there in YouTube. Hello, if you're watching on YouTube, and just drop a little comment. Just drop a little message to say you're lurking and watching YouTube there. Put a little lurk in the comments. Pluralsight. I have just published a course to Pluralsight. I'm going to do this in incognito. And I have just one of many Couchbase courses are out there. So you can just do a search for Couchbase, and you can see all of them here. Let's just search by recency. So you can see that this is mine right here, creating and managing your first Couchbase cluster. This is my course. So if you want to go check that out, there's the link for it right there. Get yourself a Pluralsight trial. Great stuff. And if you want to learn how to use Couchbase, that's a great course to start with. There's a ton more courses out here, mostly by Kishan Iyer, and there's a few by others on here as well. You can check it out. And lots of great stuff there about Couchbase. We got a question here, NJR Lawthorne. What's going on? Great to see you again. I think you probably need a welcome video at some point. You probably need to think about what you want your welcome video to be, since you're becoming quite a fixture here. Probably a question that requires some prep, but I'd like to learn more about optimizing CB aggregate queries. Example, if you have a bunch of transaction documents and you want to build a report on the total amount per day of transactions. Yeah. So like a group by, basically, is what you're talking about, and aggregate, like a sum in this case, right? Yeah. So I mean, certainly I can start on that. The optimizing part, maybe not. I'm not my strongest suit there. I can certainly give it a try. We can talk about that. But I also want to point out that there are some great Pluralsight courses for that. Just happen to be asking, right? So there is, yeah, one right here. Aggregate data from Couchbase using Nickel by Kishan Iyer. So that's a 3-hour course, right? But certainly that's going to have some useful stuff there. You're doing it with RDBMS, just interested in how it differs in CB. Yeah, it's not going to, so, you know, from my point of view, like, you're still going to need good indexes. I think, depending on which version of Couchbase you're using, some of the later versions, the more recent versions, have optimized those with something called pushdown, if I'm not mistaken. Couchbase pushdown index, or I don't know if it's indexes or something pushdown, right? Where it's just going to, let's see, there's a blog post on it, I think. Couchbase, yeah, okay, here's a documentation page. Pushdowns. So this is, I think, designed for aggregation, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe. So this is something you might want to check out. I'll give you this link here. I don't know if there's much you have to actually do to take advantage of this, but it is able to push down some of the work into the index service, I believe, instead of having to basically pull everything out and then aggregate it, in memory, right? So it's able to push some of that down index service. So it's a performance optimization. And I don't remember which version this was introduced in. I know it's in 6.5 for sure. It may have been in 6. I'm not 100% sure on that. But you may want to look into that for sure. That's where I would probably start. If I was building a presentation on optimizing aggregate queries for Couchbase, that's probably where I'd start. And also watch that Pluralsight course. All right, upcoming events. Just 2 on my radar right now. Events kind of slowed down. I mean, I had a big rush of events there for a couple of weeks, but thankfully it slowed down and get a little break. I'm working on this one a lot. This is going to be a pretty different kind of course for me, because it's more of an advanced topic, I think, about ACID transactions for NoSQL. So that'll be June. I think mine is June 11th, but NDC Oslo is coming up. It's a virtual conference. Definitely want to check it out, ndcoslo.com, and go. NDC events are really, really cool, very world-renowned events. So you want to check that out. Honored to be selected as a speaker there. Just mentioned Live Coders. I'll mention them again. Live Coders Conference coming up. That's June 20th. I will not be presenting there, but I will be certainly checking it out. And you may see some other little surprises from. I'm not going to say anything else. June 20th. Go check it out. You can sign up here. I don't know if they have anything to sign up for, notifications or anything, but conf.livecoders.dev. Certainly you can check that out. I don't think this isn't a conference page. Is it not the right one? Anyway, yeah, coming up on June 20th, June 20. June 20th, 2020. So definitely want to check that out. All right, let's get on with it. So I am going to, and I think this is still my current project, work on some more documentation today. And this is a different page this time. It's the same repo, so docsSDK.net. So we're still working on .NET stuff. And this time I'm going to work on this page here. This is a little more in-depth page, but it is about nickel queries. So this is kind of something you mentioned, JR, you wanted to see in that other Getting Started tutorial. This is kind of where you'd go to execute nickel queries in a .NET SDK, a program using .NET SDK. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to validate all the code works. Yeah, it really isn't that long. It's just got a lot of sections here. And there's a sub-page, I think, here too about scan consistency, which is a really important concept for people who are new to Couchbase. This is something that really tripped me up quite a bit when I first started. So it's something I want to review that as well. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, so I'm going to go over to my, I cleaned up my sort of project directory a little bit. Do I have this upstreamed? I don't know if there's been any major changes here, but I do want to make sure I have the latest. Okay. All right. Yes, I do have some upstream. Okay. So I'm going to do a pull from upstream. Which branch am I in? Okay, I want to switch back to the master. Or not master, but what's it called? Release 3.0. Okay. And I'm going to pull from upstream. There's a few things, and I'm going to push those things out to my fork, which I call GitHub. That should work okay. Maybe. Okay, good. And so if I go over to GitHub, mgroves, what is it called? docs.net SDK? I can't remember. Yeah, docsSDK.net, right there in the chat. Then I should see that this branch is even. Yep, I do see that. Okay, good. So now I can start working on that. Okay, and docs. There we go. Open this up in Visual Studio Code. Okay, not that page. What the page is, I'm going to be working on is... Oh, I think I have it over here in Jira. Yeah, this is the page right here. It is modules, how-tos, pages. So we're looking at modules. It's not Hello World. It's modules, how-to, pages. Okay, and then it's called Nickel Queries with SDK. So that's the one I'm going to work on here. And then there's a sub-page, which is scan consistency examples. Where's that one at? I can just click this little edit icon over here. Modules root pages. Okay, so that is modules root pages. Modules root, I'm not sure what root is. .NET SDK. I don't see a scan consistency in there. .NET docs modules root / pages. I probably want to switch branches, by the way. Where is this scan consistency page? Let's do a quick file search for it here. I'm not seeing it here. What in the world? Hey, it's Matt. Hey, it's Dota 2 Attitude. What's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. How's it going? Yeah, I was on Twitch hiatus. Oh, okay. I was on a little bit of hiatus for I skipped an episode or two, doing other stuff with lunch like napping. Oh, that's a good use of lunch right there. I endorse that. I'm not a napper myself. Whenever I actually take a nap, it's usually by accident. and it messes up my whole rhythm. But yeah, when you work from home, a 30-minute nap is an option. Yeah, I think that's great. I kind of envy nappers, but if I nap, especially during work, I mean that probably means something's gone wrong. But yeah, I'm just not a napper. Why isn't this file appearing? Docs SDK modules, root, pages, and it's not there. You have correctly assessed the nap situation. Nap time is being dad time these days. This is super weird. I'm seeing a file here on GitHub, but I'm not seeing it locally. What in the world? I've heard being dad equals no naps. Well, it depends on, I guess, how old your kids are, right? My kids are old enough where I can take a nap, and it's fine. You know, there's a React library that makes documents for React for you. Okay. Makes documents for React for you. Like documentation for React. Yeah, there's lots of programs like that. I think we have that running. Something like that for the .NET SDK. But this is really not just documentation. It's not it's not auto-generated documentation. Right? This is actually written with a guide on how to do things. Why in the world? Oh, this says release 2.7. Oh. Huh. So there is no... So I'm in 3.0 is where I'm at. So they got rid of the... Well, I'm going to have to make a note of that. Where is the scan consistency page for 3.0? I think that's an important topic for .NET CE 3.0. I don't know if that has been pulled forward for some reason or not, but I'll have to think about that. All right. So let's go through this, just read through it one time and see what kind of problems we have. All right. Whoa. Not this page. This one right here. This looks a little jacked up anyway. Okay. Nickel queries using the .NET SDK with Couchbase Server. So first of all, I guess it might be useful to know, like, is this something that I would get to? Let's see. I haven't seen the CB doc on treatment of quote characters in Nickel. I think I'm doing it right after trial and error. Might want to link to that here if it exists. So quote characters like single quote, double quote, like which one you should use, that they both work, that sort of thing. Oh, okay. I don't know if that's anywhere, honestly. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere in one of those like railroad diagrams. Oh, and backtick is a whole different thing. I don't know if that's covered somewhere either. There's probably, there's a lot of these railroad diagrams that are not in the SDK, but they're actually in like the server documentation somewhere. Or no. Yeah. Where's the Nickel portion of the documentation? Let's see. Install upgrade. I'm missing here. Query? Nickel language reference. So there's comments, line comments. Let's see. Conventions. So here's the quotes right there. You can do either one. There's nothing about backticks here. I wonder if that would be a good thing to add to this one. I'm going to make a little note. This is not related, but and this might be something you might want to submit a pull request for, JR, by the way. If you're interested, or if anyone's interested who's watching this, a quick pull request would be add another row to this that says backticks. It's for escaping bucket names, basically, or escaping anything, really, right? If you have a reserved word and you want to use that in the query, you got to backtick it to escape it. And other databases, sometimes you'll see square brackets used for that. But, of course, in Couchbase, we have to deal with arrays. And so the square brackets are reserved for arrays, so we use backticks instead. Just as an example, right? If I wanted to write a query where it's like select date from foo bar, where, I don't know, where, what's another reserved word? Where insert equals true, something like that, right? So this is a reserved word, date. So you got to put backticks around it. This has got a dash in it. So it's going to try to parse this as a minus symbol. So that needs to have backticks around it. Insert's also a reserved word. So again, backticks. Basically, that's it right there. That's the syntax. But yeah, I think that might belong here in this notational conventions. So I'm going to make a note of that. If no one else submits a pull request to that, I will submit a pull request to this page here. But that's a great little, like, just getting started, want to experiment with, sending a pull request to documentation. Click this little pencil right over here. Where is this GitHub? Yeah, you could, you don't necessarily have to go to GitHub right directly. You can go to this page here, click this little pencil icon up here, and that'll take you right to the GitHub page to edit this file. And then you can, from there, submit it as a pull request. You can do it all on GitHub if you want to. You can also pull it down and use an editor like I am Visual Studio, and you can even go to this page right here, contribute. We covered this last time, but contributing to the documentation. If you want to set up the whole workflow yourself, like to render everything locally, you can do that too. Okay, all right. Where was I? Okay, you can perform NQL queries via the Couchbase Net client. Okay, see Couchbase documentation for a quick intro to NQL. Where is this linked to? This links to, wait a second. This is the 2.7. What in the world? What is happening here? Why do I keep getting sent to 2.7s? Pages NQL queries with SDK. This is it right here. Okay. This is the page I'm working on. 3.0 is the latest version. All right. Let me just double check, make that sure that you can query for documents, Couchbase NQL query language, language based on SQL. Yes. This is matching up. Okay, good. You can query for documents in Couchbase using the NQL query language, a language based on SQL, but designed for structured and flexible JSON documents. Querying can solve typical programming tasks such as finding user profile by email address, Facebook login, or user ID. Okay, I guess. Our query service uses NQL, which will be fairly familiar to anyone who uses any dialect of SQL. Further resources. Let's see what we mean by further resources. That just goes all the way to the bottom. All right, good. I like that. Further resources learning about NQL are listed at the bottom of this page. Before you get started, you may wish to check out the NQL intro page. Where's that? That links to 6.5. I'd rather it link to current. Yeah, I'd rather it link to current. Wouldn't that make more sense? I don't know. Or just dive in with a query against our travel sample data set. In this case, one thing, pull request in there. What? You submitted a pull request already? Let's take a look. It is Couchbase docs. I don't know, was it doc server? The stupid simple way. allows for an element to be added to a string, possible to also add variables directly. I think we probably need to say it's an escape character. I think that's the idea there. But this is really good, Dota 2. I really appreciate this. That is tremendous work there. So I suspect it's going to need to be reviewed. I'm going to make a little comment here. This was a PR. You forked my repo? This is a PR from a, well, I don't know if they need any backstory on that. Okay, the Couchbase repo, yeah. Yeah, you have to fork it in order to submit a pull request like this. So, let's see, the Couchbase docs repo, I assume. How many things do you think I can do in 2 minutes? Or that it's an escape character. So the docs team is going to take a look at this and review it and possibly merge. So I could do that technically speaking. I think I have privileges, but I'm not on the docs team. So I am not going to do that. I'm going to let the docs team handle that. But yes, code it quick. This must be you, Dota 2 Attitude. So I think you got to get a little follow here. We'll see what kind of repos you got going on here. Doc server, there's the repo you forked. Yeah. Poker hand range Ruby React. Okay, that's cool. Looks cool. Let's check it out. Can I take Metal Shop Tracker? Man, you got a lot of repos in here. Okay, poker range application. Unique offering. I'll easily share the hands you play pre-flop. This is some serious poker stuff. React, Redux, Sagas, React Hooks, JavaScript / Ruby, Wallaby, Jest, Enzyme, VS Code plugin. Oh, and you can find it live, looks like. Let's see what this looks like here. First, pick your betting pattern. Huh? This is like, well, this is pretty cool. I like this little guided tutorial. I like those. As long as they don't show up like every time I visit here, right? They say it's broken. It's mostly working. I don't understand half this poker stuff going on here, but I assume this is something to help you learn or help you win more or something. Now look at all this stuff. I'm just clicking around. I don't know what I'm doing. Decide which hands to play. Huh, interesting. Hand range display application. Oh, so it's like you can't see. Okay, got it. So when I used to watch the poker tournament stuff on TV, before the flop came down, you would see everybody's hands, right? And then they would show a percentage next to it, like here's the odds of this hand winning, something like that. And then that would change as the flop would come down, as the turn and the river would come down. I assume that's what this is, to kind of show you. What are your odds of winning, I guess, or of your hand winning? Oh, it's not that. Okay, well, that's see the colors green. Yes, that's a betting pattern. Oh, red is a different one. Okay. All right. Now see the percentages change in the legend? Yes. Percentages here, right? Green in this case is actually your value hands, and red is bluffing. Okay. Track what hands you're playing from different positions in Texas Hold'em poker. Click the street on the left. Yeah, you didn't have anything. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, well that's pretty interesting. So hey, check this out. It's if you're into poker, I'm not really into it, but you want to check out that that repo there. That's some pretty cool stuff. All right, and thank you very much for that pull request, Dota 2. Much appreciated. Okay. Yeah, looks good to me. You may want to actually, of course, you can PR this stuff in Couchbase. Absolutely. If I were you, I'd probably this is me. This is just the way I work. I'd probably wait for the one to go through and get some feedback, see how the process works. But absolutely, if you see documentation that you think needs to be fixed, updated, you see typos, anything at all, feel free to submit a pull request to it. Absolutely. By the way, if you are into React and JavaScript and Node and that kind of stuff, you may want to check out my colleague's Twitch stream, HTTP Junkie. He does a lot more React and GraphQL and stuff like that than I do. Node, Apollo, JavaScript, all that kind of stuff. He would be a good follow for you. Absolutely. And he also does Couchbase stuff from time to time. So that's a good recommendation for you. All right. Before you start, you may want to wish to check out the Nickel intro page or just dive in with a query against our travel sample data set. I'm thinking that needs to have a link. Oh, you already follow it. Okay, cool. Grabbing a roast beef sandwich. Get that beef. I'm thinking this needs to have a link to the travel sample. Like how to put travel sample. Let's see. Sample buckets, something like this. Yeah. Yes, I think I'm going to make that a link there. Okay, this is going to be a cross-reference, right? And it's going to be something like server, manage settings, something like that. Okay, yep, so I just make that a link, so in case they don't know what that is, they can go and find out. All right, one thing you need to know is that in order to make a bucket queryable, you must have at least one index defined. Mostly true, I guess. You can define a primary index on a bucket. When a primary index is defined, you can issue non-covered queries on this bucket as well. Is this a term people are familiar with? Non-covered queries. And this also does not say anything about you shouldn't do this in production. Does anybody use CB and not create the primary index? Developers, I would say it's very common. But the danger there is you do not want it in production. Almost never want it in production. Create the primary index, but how will it auto increment? There isn't. So I think you're mixing up concepts there, Dota. So auto increment is you're talking about like a primary key in relational databases, like a primary key. A primary index is different than that. So you also have indexes in relational databases, but and typically a primary key is indexed, right? So it's kind of two different concepts there. And auto increments, so you can do something like auto increment in Couchbase. You can use something like a counter feature. It's a little bit more work to do. I always when people ask this question, I'm always like, well, why do you need auto increment? Is there a particular reason that's something that you need? The other, J.R. Lawthorne mentions the other approach here to take is UUIDs or GUIDs. That's what I call them, GUIDs, because from the Microsoft world, but UUIDs. Combining keys is pretty cool. Yeah, you can also, in the Couchbase key, you can sort of delimit them and make them a little more meaningful. They don't have to be just numbers. They don't have to be just UUIDs. They can be multiple values together. So a composite key, in Couchbase, you only have the one, Couchbase, you only have the one key per document. Now, you can make that key sort of artificially composite, right? You can have two different values in there with a delimiter. But you can't have a key made up of multiple fields, for instance. You can have a composite index. Yes, absolutely. You can have all kinds of indexes in Couchbase, but not a composite key, at least not in the relational sense of a composite key. Okay. You can define a primary index on a bucket. This non-covered text here, I'm just wondering if that could be improved. Composite keys are useful whenever you want to ensure stuff is unique that should be unique. Anyway, I kind of get out of the habit of using them. You can also, you don't need to necessarily have composite key in order to make them unique. You can have unique, in relational world, you can have unique constraints on fields, which is different than a composite, different than a key. So you've got indexes, constraints, and keys. They're all different concepts there. Your database is already designed, A, and passing around composite keys is annoying, B. Interesting that you say your database is already designed, as if it's something that's done, as if you're never going to have to change it again. Which, I mean, in some cases you may not. CB doesn't do much or any schema enforcement, quote schema enforcement. Yeah, there's nothing like that really in Couchbase right now. The closest thing is the key constraint, I guess, and it has to be JSON. Right, that's about it. There may be some schema validation coming in the future. Not really enforcement, I don't think, in the sense of, you can't. I mean, you could probably still bypass the validation if you really wanted to. The most common composite is many-to-many relationships. We have two keys in a join table. Yep, that's true. You need less of that in a document database, but yep, that's absolutely true. Without composites, how do you use many-to-many relations? That's a good question. So you can still use them. It's still the same kind of concept in JSON or in NoSQL. Enforcing them is a different story, though, right? That has to be something that's a little bit more application level stuff, right? And so the database itself isn't necessarily going to do a lot of that enforcement. You can use something called Couchbase eventing to kind of update those a little bit as you need to. But it's not enforcement, right? Nothing like that. It would be something you have to manage in your application level. And there's also ACID transactions, which may be helpful in that situation. Yeah, eventing is an enterprise feature. That's correct. But ACID transactions are not an enterprise feature. So you could use those to help manage that at the application level. Alrighty. But I mean, yeah, many to many. Yep. Okay, so what was I was just making it. Oh yeah, this primary indexed language here. So I'm concerned about this non-covered queries. Like that phrase, if I'm coming here for the first time, I'm like, what does that mean, non-covered queries? I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to, because this is documentation, right? Doesn't have a covering index. Well, covering index is something a little different than, I mean, covering index means something different, right? But internal jargon. I don't know if this is internal jargon. It might be a standard phrase used by other databases, but it's just something that I'd be like, what do they mean by that? But this is an important thing to understand, is that primary index will allow you to basically execute any query. It's kind of like a fallback. Yeah, what's a non-covered query? Well, I mean, it's a query that's not covered by any other, not included in any other indexes, right? That no other indexes can be found for the query that you're executing, right? So maybe that's the way I phrase it. How do I do comments in this? When executing queries, if if a suitable index is not found, a primary index will ensure that the query will be executed anyway. I don't know if that's quite the right phrasing. What do you think? When executing queries, if a suitable index is not found, the primary index. The primary index will ensure that the query will be executed anyway. One thing you got to keep in mind is 80% of developers reading your docs are actually scanning them. Yeah, I absolutely understand that for sure. Yep. That's something that I think about whenever I write blog posts, anything for the web, is that it's just being scanned. Yeah, you're skipping. And that's one of the things with making your documentation more readable for the web is adding bullet points and breaking up with screenshots and headers and all that kind of stuff to make it scannable. It's very, very important. But on the same other side of the coin there is that it is documentation, right? And so if, there's situations where customers will come to this page and say, hey, you said this in the documentation, we're going to hold you to that. We're going to put your feet to the fire on that. And they're going to gravitate to one little sentence and be like, what about this? What does this mean? Why does it say this? So you got to be careful with that when it's official documentation, right? So the section you're in now, I'd only read it if I needed detail. Right. Well, some people, at some point, if you're having trouble, you're going to go back to the top and you're going to actually start reading back down. Well, maybe I missed something. Oh, there we go. That's the important thing I missed. But yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. You'd say, okay, well, all right, I'll do this first. There's the first piece of code. I'll copy that and run it. Blah blah blah. Okay, here's the .NET code. I'll copy this into Visual Studio and run it. That sort of thing. So yeah, it's important. As I go through this, I'm going to be validating these little code snippets as well. Make sure that they work correctly. But I still want to get the wording right. So suitable index is not found. Query will be executed anyway. I copy and paste the code. If it doesn't work, I'd read the paragraph. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd expect people to do. So we're going to get to that code for sure. You can define a primary index on the bucket. When executing queries, if a suitable index is not found, the primary index will ensure that the query will be executed anyway. I want to use the term fallback in there somewhere. And I want to somehow is primary index defined. It's let's see. I mean, basically that's what we're doing right now, right? You can define a primary index on a bucket. When a primary index is defined, you can issue non-covered queries on the bucket as well. That's kind of where I'm working, is to define that. In relational, I think of primary index as a table's primary key. So again, that's two different concepts, right? Typically in relational, a primary key also has an index. it's kind of the same thing, right? But I mean, in Couchbase, every document has a key. Whoa. Every document has a key. Yes, true. But the index, the primary index, is not enabled. Key versus index should be understood. Yeah, but again, if you're coming from a relational world, you may have just taken that for granted all these years and be like, okay, well, I don't understand why is this different, sort of thing. So I'm trying to convey that in a succinct way, that hey, it's something a little different. So in Couchbase, is the primary index an index on the key value? Basically, I think that's how it works. But what it actually enables there, because it's a special syntax here, right? This is not, you only can have one primary index, right? And you don't define fields on it. But what you do by saying primary index means, okay, you can scan the whole document now. So you can look at the individual contents of the document with the primary key enabled, even though you still have to pull that document into memory, scan it, and go on to the next one. So it's a full bucket scan. Let me see if I can. Do I have Couchbase running locally here? kind of table reference. Yep. Let's kind of show you maybe how this works. So let's see, buckets, Twitch chat. Okay, let's create a new bucket here. We'll call this one, I don't know, my test bucket. 100 megabytes of memory. Okay, so now I've got a bucket. Notice here, if I go to bucket view, I've got indexes here for 3 buckets. I do not have an index for my bucket or for my test. So I'll go in here, add a document. I'll just call this one Dota 2 attitude. And I'll say sandwich roast beef. What is your favorite sandwich there, JR? Because I'm about to add one for you. JR Lawhorn? Sandwich, I don't know, brisket, good choice. This is a very important document, yes. Brisket, okay. So we got 2 documents, both have sandwich in them, right? If we go here, query, I'm going to select star from my, what is it, what do I call it? My bucket? My test. Select star from my test. This will not work. In a relational database, this would work because typically, anyway, most relational databases anyway, have a table scan enabled, like always. You can always scan the whole table. In relational, you should be creating indexes, right? But a lot of times, developers don't. They don't create indexes, and they'll just fall back to a table scan, which they can usually get away with it, right? Because maybe it's a small table, and they won't until it's in production and starts to slow down. They won't even notice, right? That's not a good practice, but honestly that's what happens in real life. Okay. Now I can run queries that don't need an index, so I can still do a count for my test. That still works. I don't need an index for that. It's just an aggregate, so that query works just fine. And I can do something that doesn't even select from the bucket. Notice there's no from here. That'll work just fine too. I'm not actually querying any bucket data. I'm just running this query. It's just returning a literal, right? But this will not work. All right, and this will not work if I say t.star where t.sandwich equals, I can't spell sandwich, brisket. That will not work either. Why would you ever not add the index? And again, the reason is production. So let's go look at this one. Travel sample, 31,000 documents, all right? If I say select t.star from travel sample, God forbid this would actually make it into production. But let's suppose it did. This is what would happen. We're scanning 32,000 documents. And you can see it's taking way too long. And actually, the UI here says, hey, this is just too much for actually return. This is a query that is hitting every single document, which is running pretty fast here locally, 5 seconds. But that's a relatively small bucket, right? 32,000. If we had 1 million documents, 2 million, 10 million, this will just be bad news. So that one does not have the primary index on it, or I guess it does. Yeah, it does. It does. Travel sample does have the primary index right there. Yep. In production, this should not be here, right? But it gives a sample bucket, so it's fine. All your queries were slow because no indexes. Yes, absolutely. That is the key. What Couchbase is kind of doing is forcing you to say, look, I need to think about performance sooner than later, right? And the other thing I should point out is that you can access documents by key without an index or without the query service at all. You can just go directly and look it up by the key, and that is super, super fast. So the primary index should be omitted in production to prevent you from selecting the whole bucket. That's a great way of phrasing it. I think I'm going to use that in the documentation. maybe it isn't parenthetical. The primary index should be omitted in production to prevent you from selecting the whole bucket. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's not quite that simple, but that's a pretty good way of phrasing it, I think. Maybe it should not be used in production to prevent scanning of the whole bucket. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay. Really good. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and working through some of this stuff. All right. Use CBQ or interactive query shell. Open it into the following. Oh, I hate this. I hate this when they point out CBQ. So let me ask you this. Maybe you all have opinions on this. So when you're writing queries, when you're working as a developer running queries in whatever database you're using, what is your preferred tool for that? Say SQL Server or MySQL. Where do you prefer to work with queries? Oh, you were today years old when you learned why the primary index is not automatically added. Yeah, I mean, those are kind of a couple things. Primary index and scan consistency were something that kind of bit me when I first started at Couchbase years and years ago. But I mean, once you understand them, they're perfectly reasonable. I go directly into the database, typically on something like MySQL Workbench, PHPMyAdmin. There's a bunch. So MySQL Workbench, I assume, is some sort of UI. I don't know if I've used that one before. I have used PHPMyAdmin, which is definitely a web-based UI. MySQL Workbench. The visual, yep, so it's a UI. Yes, I agree. I think a lot of developers do the same thing. However, a lot of places in our documentation, we keep flogging this command line tool, CBQ, which is like a kind of like a REPL or a command line tool. Oh, does that link even work? Oh, that link doesn't even work. For CB, I use the web UI to route queries. Me too. For SQL, for MySQL, you use the command line. Interesting. So you do use the command line, MySQL. Well, one thing I discovered is that this isn't even working. To be honest, I couldn't imagine using the CLI. I mean, I used the CLI in college when I was first learning SQL with again, I'm pretty old, so this was like Oracle 7 or I don't know. It was an old version of Oracle. It was all command line. My exam was basically writing SQL in a command line with the professor there. Unless it's in a Docker container, even then I'd set up a container for PHPMyAdmin or something. I'm with you, Dota 2. I feel the same way. I know there are developers out there who like to run command line queries and stuff, but honestly I don't understand how you could do that. And I mean, for scripting, I could see CBQ, command line stuff, yes, but for day-to-day development, I don't think so. I rarely run raw queries. Let's try saying that. I rarely run raw queries. That's a good vocal warm-up. I rarely run raw queries. So what do you flag then instead of CBQ? Yeah, the UI is what JR is talking about, the web-based UI. This link is broken anyway, so that needs to be fixed. But where do I send them to? So first of all, CBQ, there's a link for this. Ooh, that is not a great page. What do we got here? That's a better one. Okay. So I'm still going to flag CBQ, but in a parenthetical. If your CB server web UI isn't accessible from your machine, you might SSH in and run something on CLI. That would be rare for me. I guess that's a good point. Like if you don't have admin access to production, but from a developer point of view, I mean, I probably wouldn't be developing queries against production anyway. I hope not, right? Again, primary index be in development. That's where I'd be working. I guess in production, maybe, or in staging, I guess it might work. But does CB work in PHP-MyAdmin or MySQL Workbench? Not as far as I know. So those are MySQL specific tools, and Couchbase won't work with those. That being said, if you really want to use those for some reason, there is something called a JDBC driver. If you're familiar with JDBC, I think MySQL Workbench might be able to work with JDBC or ODBC. I don't think PHP-MyAdmin will, because that's basically just a web front end for MySQL. I haven't used it in a long time, so I don't remember for sure. But anyway, Couchbase, ODBC, JDBC driver. There's a third party called CData. They make a lot of these drivers. There's a page in the docs right here. Right here. You can connect basically any sort of BI analytics tool that can work with ODBC or JDBC drivers. You can use that to connect to Couchbase. This is not what I would put in the documentation. Absolutely not. This is a situation that is not really good for developers. It's great for, like, if you're building reports, you're creating crystal reports, or some other sort of reporting tool that uses ODBC, JDBC, but is not going to be performant enough for development. But I think maybe analysts, basically, or other integration tools that you might need ODBC or JDBC. So I wouldn't link to that here. But I think you're on the right track here, Dota 2, in that I would link to both, yes. So CBQ, sure. Query Workbench is the other one I'd link to. And in fact, there's even a page here called Query Tools that kind of shows all of them. Brings in monitoring and the REST API. I wonder if that would be even a good page to start with. But that sort of takes you an extra link. So we've got three options here. We've got the Query Tools page. We've got this Workbench page. So, like, this is the UI that J.R. Lawthorne's talking about. This is built into Couchbase, and it's using an old screenshot, but that's okay. That's where I spend most of my time. I think that's where most developers spend their time working on queries, is in the UI. Some people might use CBQ. This link is wrong, however, so it needs to go anyway. To execute queries, you can use to execute queries. I guess to execute Nickel, maybe you can use. I'm going to say Query Workbench. I either link the page that gives all the options or link to the Workbench. Depends on how you want to funnel them. Probably to the bench, especially if they're new. Yeah, I think I'm going with that. And I'll just parenthetical, or you can use the CBQ command line tool. CBQ for scripting. I think so. I'd assume people are using CBQ for scripting. So, for instance, if you wanted to automatically create that primary index in, like, your Docker file or something, your custom Docker file, you may want to run CBQ. You could also use the REST API for that, but one or the other, right? Okay, CBQ command line tool. Just put it in parenthetical. There are hardcore people out there that just love the command line, that just consider any sort of use of a mouse to be just like heretical. Like, I don't want to touch that mouse. I assume your custom Workbench outputs the CLI commands. It does not. I don't think so. So, like, here's the Workbench. Yay, Vim. Trying to learn Vim. Yeah, that's not my jam at all. good for you all, but not my jam. So yeah, there's nothing here like a command line output. That might be an interesting enhancement for the query editor to have a button somewhere that shows you the command line option or the rest option. So for instance, if you go to our search index, if you add an index here, this is for text-based searches, not related to nickel. Notice up here, it shows this index definition preview. You can copy that to clipboard. And at some point, you can even get the curl command for it. I guess it's not here. Most of these have the SQL NoSQL query. That's a big feature suggestion, though. It's not a bad one. I actually kind of interested in that as feature suggestion. And again, if you want to submit that Dota 2, you absolutely can. You go to issues.couchbase.com. I think this would be the best place for feature suggestion. You can go in here, you can create an account real quick, and you can submit an issue, like a ticket. This is our Jira. It's open to the public. You could submit, hey, I'd like to see this, and why you'd like to see it, how you'd expect it to work, that sort of thing. Someone may have already entered it as a suggestion. I don't know, but that's currently the best way to suggest a feature, I think. Anywho, and another trick with that would be, one of the tricky things would be, well, how the command would look slightly different based on Linux, Windows, or Mac, how it would look. So that might be a little tricky as well. Like, which one do you actually output? So a lot to think about there. Anywho, let's get back to it. So query workbench. So that's how I want it to work. Execute nickel, you can use query workbench, or you can use the CBQ command line tool. Open it, enter the following. So create primary index on travel sample. A problem with this is that travel sample already has one. What happens if I execute that? Is it creating another index? Can I have two? Oh my gosh, now I have two primary indexes on that. It's just redundant. Is there a syntax for if not exists? I don't know, but I don't necessarily want to dive into that, like adding if not exists syntax into here. And it also says, or replace travel sample with a different bucket name to build an index on a different data set. And they've used the data set word here. That's probably not a good idea, because data set actually means something elsewhere in Couchbase. Maybe I say different bucket. Or replace travel sample with a different bucket name to build an index on a different bucket. But that just makes sense, right? Which project would this feature suggestion go into? Oh, I'm sorry, Dota 2. Good question. Let me just take a look here. I think probably Couchbase Server, which is MB in Jira, because it's a UI feature, right? But the UI ships with the server itself. So I think MB, Couchbase Server MB. It's an epic. I mean, for feature suggestion, I'd say no. For if they actually pick it up, yeah, it'd probably become an epic. But feature suggestion is just thrown in there as a hey, I'm just suggesting a cool feature. I think this will be helpful to the UI. Here's how I think it should work. Here's how it should look, etc. Yeah, that'd be cool. And they may close it as a duplicate, or they may close it as we don't think that's going to be good. Yeah, an improvement. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Improvement is a good idea. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So should I add a little parenthetical here that if you're using travel sample, it already has? Let me just double check that is the case. I'm pretty sure it is. So I'm going to delete travel sample. Okay, and then I'll add it back in. Yeah, there it is. Def primary. It already has one. And this has a little note about CBQ. Oh gosh. Is that over here as well? Yeah. I think that can just be omitted. Improving this and or adding Service 6.0 tools workbench. Wow, look at this. That is an old note. I think we're going to take out this note here. And I'm going to say if you are using, just as a note, as an aside, if you are using travel sample, it comes with a primary index already created. My Docker start script uses CBQ to generate primary index. There you go. Yeah, I think for those types of tasks, automation, scripting, or in a situation where you're SSHing somewhere, you don't have the UI. Those things that totally make sense. Totally makes sense to me. But the thing is, right now, and we're working on this, but right now, you can't just install CBQ by itself. Like there's no CBQ package or anything like that. All the command line tools, they come with Couchbase Server. So ultimately, you still have to install Couchbase Server somewhere to use those tools. Even if you're not running Couchbase locally, you still got to install it to get those tools. Couchbase CLI command to init the cluster, create bucket, add user. Yeah, all that stuff. Absolutely. Have you seen these, JR? Couchbase fake it? Yeah, right here. Story points, just leave that blank, Dota. That's just... no, that's something that you, as a feature suggestion, don't need to define. I'd worry more about putting in a good description about what you expect it to be. Leave the story point estimation for the people who are actually implementing it. JR, have you seen these Couchbase fake it Docker images? Because these include a lot of sort of those build up your Docker images for development purposes features built in. Like it'll create indexes for you. Basically you to give it a definition, and it'll generate data for you and all this kind of stuff. Create indexes, create full text search indexes, all this kind of stuff. It's Docker images. These are created by Brant Burnett, who does a lot of. He's one of the top .NET open source Couchbase contributors out there. He doesn't work for Couchbase, but he does a lot of open source work for it. So they use this at their company for testing and development. Oh yeah. He helps you get your script set up. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. But this has got some of that stuff built in already. So you may want to consider just using these images directly. Just a thought. You certainly don't have to. You can certainly create your own with those command line tools. Okay. If you are using feature suggestion made, well, cool. What's the MB number there, Dota 2? I'll watch it. Just see what happens to it. Okay. MB 39559. Okay, I'm going to bring it up now. Over here. I'm going to just get a little watch. Cool. Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. And that'll be interesting to see what happens there. You didn't mention CBQ in the comments. I'm reading through. You didn't mention CBQ in the comments. You may want to update it to say, You don't. Okay, that's fine. Lunch is important. So go get your lunch or finish your lunch up. But you may want to come back and revisit that and say, I'd like to see a CBQ output or a REST API output or both as an option, so I could run them in my scripts. Very cool, Dota. I appreciate your contributions today. Really, really great. I love it. Okay, so this note here about CBQ, I'm taking that out of this page because that's already brought up on the CBQ page itself. And I'm de-emphasizing CBQ as well, so not as important. So here's how it looks now. If you trial sample, it comes with the primary index already created. What you says in the comments. Beautiful. Terrific. Okay. Queries and placeholders. Go to the next section here. Oh, I keep bringing this Google search up. Placeholders allow you to specify variable constraints for an otherwise constant query. There are two variants of placeholder, positional and named parameters. Yeah, why are we calling them placeholders when they're definitely called parameters in the code? I'm going to rename this to parameterization. Parameters allow you to specify variable constraints for an otherwise constant query. There are two variants of parameters. Positional. Was that spelled correctly? It's not. Positional and named. Positional parameters use an ordinal placeholder for substitution, and name parameters use variable names. A named or positional parameter is a placeholder for a value. In this case, use an ordinal placeholder. Yeah, let's just call this numbered. Use a numbered placeholder for substitution, and name parameters use a named placeholder. A named or positional parameter is a placeholder for a value. I'll just say can be used. How's this? Can be used in the where, limit, or offset clauses of a query. Note that both parameters and options are optional. What does that mean? Parameters and options are optional. Optional options. Yeah, that seems like a little strange. I'm going to get rid of that. Excuse me. Positional parameter example. Okay, so we need to actually get some code out here. Time to open Visual Studio. Boom. Okay. New project. New project. Hello. Let's go Visual Studio. Console app is fine. We're doing, no. It's going to, let's delete me. Oh, you know what? Something I forgot about. This has been running all weekend. I just started doing this, is folding at home. And it just runs full blast when my computer's in idle. I'm wondering, actually, I had some problems with streaming buffering over this weekend. I'm wondering if this is the cause of it. But searching for aliens, no. You can, that's SETI at home. I don't know if that's even still around, right? SETI at home. Yeah, maybe it is. Oh, it says it's in hibernation. They're not doing anything anymore. Folding at home is protein folding, I believe, right? It's a similar concept, right? You use your computer capacity to help research. So mine is right now set to COVID-19. There's other diseases you can help support research for. I figured it's the least I could do. I've got this really powerful CPU here, just sitting idle most of the time, especially on the weekends. So why not just have it help somebody out? So there's a lot of COVID-19 projects right now. I don't know if any of these have to do with vaccines or treatment or anything like that, but it's something, right? It's something I can do. So you can see right here, I've got, I don't know what all these numbers mean, but it looks like I've earned a lot of points, like 1,000,000 points, which seems good to me. I don't know if those points mean anything, but you can see a lot of teams here, all the credit they're racking up. But it's pretty cool. It runs in idle mode, which I assume is whenever I lock the computer, that's considers idle. And you can change it to lower power and stuff like that. But there we go. And I might want to check that out. That's folding at home. That's a cool little thing. You know, any little bit I think would help. So no alien searching anymore though. All right. What was I doing? Oh yeah, Visual Studio. Okay. So I've got, and we're kind of assuming at this point in this documentation that a person already knows how to add Couchbase.net through NuGet, all those sorts of things. You know, we don't need to do them every single page. Maybe consider linking to it. I don't know. Maybe there's an additional resource we can add later. But we're going to take this piece of code here and throw it into here. It's not going to work because I don't have a cluster defined. I don't have Couchbase defined. This is 3.0, right? Yeah. So we just need to verify that this piece of code is actually working. So 3.0.1 is what I'll use. Okay, so this needs to be what? Async task, something like that. I don't quite remember the 3.0 syntax off the top of my head just yet. I haven't written it enough times. Let's see. No, that's not what I want. What I want is getting started. Oh, hey, Gamlore. Thanks for hanging out, lurking. Appreciate it. We'll see you again. Yeah, this is what I want right here. And think about that video. That's you too, J.R. Lawthorne. Think about a intro video that you want. A little, like TBD Gamer has the 18 that shows up right here. Calvin has the Norm from Cheers. Coral has the Spaceballs playing with your dolls. So if you think of a little video clip, you know, a few seconds that you want to show up when you first arrive in the stream, just think about that. Okay, localhost, my username is administrator, password, okay. There is no default bucket. It's interesting we've gone back to default here, even though we've referenced travel sample earlier. And it's got capital T for type, which that's no good. Yeah, they should definitely be using travel sample. I don't know why they're doing it like this. Okay. Travel sample, and x.type should be lowercase t, I believe. And the parameter, where type equals something that's going to be relatively quick. I think landmark would probably be better. So let's throw this in there. Oh, the other thing this is doing wrong is, if you notice, yeah, this is just not going to work. This is just a bad code sample. Notice it uses X right here. There's no X defined for default. So this is bad news already. Just not working. I mean, again, the concept is kind of there, but it's just slightly incorrect. So options.parameter, landmark. So I want to say rows equals result dot rows for each row and rows. I'm going to console dot write line. row dot what? Row dot name. What's the problem here? Okay, public instance of get enumerator. Wait for each. Oh, this should be a wait for each. Yep. Okay. And then cluster dot dispose. Dispose async? Why not? Everything's async these days, right? So let's execute this and see what happens. Everybody knows I got a haircut, by the way. There's the program. Got this nice, and I got my beard trim as well. My wife says it looks much nicer, a lot less shaggy. The trim, a little more trim on this side, but a little less trim down here. Oh, what in the world? Someone said the chat's not showing up for me. I'm seeing the chat on the screen, but it's not showing up in the chat box. Oh, there it is. Hey, Tail Learn Code. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. You should definitely check out Tail Learn Code stream. Give him a follow as well. I wasn't fishing for a compliment. I was just wondering, like, honest feedback. Does it look better? Worse? Same? Don't care. So the console app's working. There's a lot of landmarks it's outputting, but it's working. So that is a better sample, I think. Looks good for a COVID cut. Well, my wife is actually the one who's been cutting my hair. I mean, I haven't gone to an actual barber. I go to maybe once a year at tops. My wife is the one who usually cuts my hair. Interesting that we go right into parameterization before we talk about just a plain old query, but I don't know. Named parameter example. Same sort of thing here. Dave Ramsey plan. Let's get my wife to learn. I'm not a Dave Ramsey guy. But yes, it kind of comes from that, right? There was a point where we were every 6 months, every year, we'd reevaluate our expenses and say, well, what can we actually cut? What can we do to save some money? So, this was a long time ago. We started doing this just to save, $20 or whatever every few months on haircuts. We used to do a thing where we'd do homemade laundry detergent because that was an expense that we really didn't need. So we just make like a year's supply of laundry detergent. We've stopped doing that because it's a lot of time to do, and so back then we had a little more time, and it made sense. These days we don't have as much time, so we did that for a while. But yeah, it's also just like it's the same amount of time for me to sit and have my wife cut my hair as it is to go out and pay someone else to do it. So, and it's just a lot more convenient. All right, this is it's giving me a straight up error. Why is that? Because we've got see again. Copying, pasting, syntax there, it's just wrong. So it just tells me that something mangled these or someone didn't actually execute them. What is going on with this spacing? Okay. Our type equals user, and again, I want this to be travel sample. I'm going to change it to T, where T dot type, and it has to be lowercase t, otherwise people are going to get confused. Why isn't this working? Because your casing's not right. Okay. The difference here is we're showing this is ordinal, right? Notice that the placeholder is a 1. Down here, the placeholder is a name. So here we have to specify the name that this landmark is going to correspond to. Up here, it's just, okay, the first one is matching the first one. So, okay, now that's working. Good. So I will paste that one in here. And formatting, get that right. Okay. There we go. What's the difference here? Okay. Complete code for this page is what? can be found at xref. What in the world? This is in our documentation right now. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. Well, maybe this isn't going to be a delete me after all. Okay. So you need to fix that. Complete code for this page. Add code example. So that's kind of nice because now you can. It's not showing you all the connection boilerplate and all that kind of stuff here in the documentation. But if you need that, you can go to GitHub and see the whole thing. So that's going to take me a little bit more work to actually drag that into the docs here. All right, here we go. And one thing it doesn't mention here, it should mention, because this is important, because I still see this. I still see this all the time. Use parameterization. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up for dependency injection, or not dependency injection, SQL injection. I'm still seeing this from developers. They just string together strings instead of correct parameterization. Parameterization is also a good defense against SQL injection. User framework. I mean, yeah, you could do that too, like link, for instance. But you could still have, I think, some situations, you can still have SQL injection even if using link. So parameterization, still a good idea. Maybe not. I can't think of a way you'd have SQL injection with link. Because most of the time it's using parameters, yes. But there may be a few narrow situations. But still, parameterization. Use it. And not everyone wants to use link. Or, whatever other framework, Ottoman or whatever, if you're in Node, or Spring if you're in Java. Not everyone needs it, right? We get back to the whole question of Dapper or Entity Framework. Which one do I use? I say, use them both together in the same project. Why not? But some people don't like all the extra ceremony and overhead of a framework like Link or Entity Framework, and they prefer Dapper. So this is kind of Dapper basically right here. This looks a lot like Dapper, doesn't it? Where you have a SQL string and it maps to an object, where you get a collection of those objects, and you have parameters. I mean, basically, this is kind of like, Couchbase's .NET SDK is Dapper in a sense. And when it comes to queries like this. But yeah, SQL injection. I'm not even going to link to this because I want people to come across this and say, what the heck is SQL injection? If they don't know what that is, then they need to go figure it out. That is something that is extremely important, full stop. If you don't know what that is, then do not pass go. Stop, go look it up. You want to avoid that. Okay. Okay, this is bad. That needs to be fixed. Okay, we'll go on to handling results. Most cases, your query will return more than one result, and you may be looking to iterate over those results. Okay, this is basically what I had done down here. If you didn't notice, but I'm going to comment this part out. Okay, and we've got problems again. So this again, we're going to change this to travel sample and type and landmark. Metadata isn't even there. I don't know. Has it ever been there? I don't think that's ever been something. Result.status. I mean, result dot. There is metadata, but it's not. Yeah, it's camel cased like this. Okay, so that's a problem. And this is, we already came across this. This is asynchronous, so this needs to be an await. Okay, and and this shouldn't be username, right? Should be name. Why is it got Mike in quotes? That's weird. And then not age, but what else is in there besides landmark name? Just to t.star from travel sample t, where t.type equals landmark. I'm just going to limit this to like 10. What happened? Is this the reserved word? No? Not over here. It'll work just fine because I had the t dot in front of it. What did I do? Oh, it's not create t.star. It's select. Okay. We'll see. T dot, so I want T dot name, T dot, I don't know, phone, maybe? Yeah, there's a lot that are null. So it's not null for all of these. T dot address. Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. So I'm say address. So for example, it's going to be like Hollywood Bowl. This is in the comments for some reason, so why don't I just leave that there, I guess. And then t.address would be for... Wait, is this a different Hollywood Bowl? What is... Okay, I don't know. That's fine. Okay, and then I also want just to console right line this stuff. Name. Oh, console right line should go in here. Name, comma, not age, address. Just like I was doing before, basically. Console dot, not console. Await cluster dot dispose. Oh, it didn't finish. Why? Is this not correct? Results, errors, no errors. Oh, what? What in the world? No rows? What did I do wrong here? Type equals landmark. Oh, it's an X in here. T.type. Come on now. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. So more like this. I'll leave the console.write line there because why not? Okay, and keep out the dispose. Okay, so that actually works. We got this await in here. We got the metadata correct. So we just had some problems with the samples as is. All right. Scan consistency. Setting a staleness parameter for queries with scan consistency enables a trade-off between latency and eventual consistency. So using the word staleness here, I don't object to it because it kind of conveys the concept. But the problem is staleness is used elsewhere in Couchbase with the MapReduce views. That being said, I don't think this is a problem. I'm going to leave it. Trade-off between latency and eventual consistency. between latency and eventual consistency. Yes, that's correct. So basically you're choosing between consistency and performance. There's 3 different options here. This is a very important thing. Does anybody know how I would make all the text in my website white? Why would you want to do that? This is a completely off-topic thing, Pokemon Black Gamer, but since you have decided to come in and hang out on my channel, I am happy to go off on tangents here. There is no such thing as a stupid question in this channel. We can try it. You want to give it a try? I mean, yeah, color FFF would be one way to do it. But if you want to make your whole website white, well, the whole website is a whole different concept. I can tell you how to make everything in a page, a single page white. So why don't we try it? I'm going to create a new document here, off screen. And I'm going to create a special folder just for you, Pokemon Black Gamer. Does that mean you like to play Pokemon Black? Or are you a black gamer who likes Pokemon? I don't know. Is there a Pokemon Black? I have no idea. Okay, so I've got this folder called Pokemon Black Gamer. I'm going to go to Users, Me, Desktop, Pokemon Black Gamer. Okay, so I've got an index file in here. Just the text, he says. All right. So I've got this. This is crazy because my sister is actually learning HTML for the first time. She's sending me questions like this. Hello world. Okay, so you've got some text here. You've got Pokemon. And I've got a paragraph. I like Pokemon. Another paragraph. JR Lawhorn rules. And we'll create a link here to twitch.tv/MatthewDGroves. Check out this Twitch. Okay. So we've got all those things there. Let's open it up in a browser, shall we? Pokemon Black Gamer. Where is it? Right here. Open this up. There we go. Okay. So you've got black on white text. I'm assuming, are you working with, have you done anything with CSS yet, Pokemon Black Gamer? So we can say, I don't know, body, background, color to be tomato. Let's do that. So if we refresh this page, we got tomato as a background color now. Okay? So the entire body, everything in here, has a background color of tomato. By the way, before I proceed any further, let me just say I am not a CSS expert by far. I am a neophyte at best. I know the basics of it. But we can then say color white. There we go. So it's basically what J.R. Lawhorn was saying. So you can use the word white. You can also give the hex code, which is like FFF, or the expanded one, which would be FFFFFF. And that will also work. The only reason I would want to use these is if it was a color that's not defined with a sort of a shortcut word already. I don't know what those are called. I would prefer to use white. And in this case, tomato. There you go. Now, notice it's not changing this one. I believe because the browser, depending on the browser, this will change the color of your links. You can override that too, I think. So just do color white in the body. I mean, that's one way to do it. Yes, absolutely. You could also say star, I think, which I don't know has much meaningful difference. Oh, there you go. You can say star, and that will make everything white. And that, I believe, will override everything. So depending on what you want to do, you can take those two paths. The color white in the body, in the body in CSS, right? You could also, this is not the way you should do it, right? But you can say like style and inline it here. Background color tomato. You don't have to have this style part here. You can take that out. That's basically the same thing. If I refresh, although I took out the star, right? So It's better practice to do CSS separately like this. It's even better to do in a separate file. But yeah, does that answer your question there, Pokemon Black Gamer? And if we get into much more complex CSS than this, I will be out of my depth. Can you type the code for color white in chat, please? The code, yeah, what basically J.R. Laughlin was saying. So FFFFFF or FFF or just white. Those will all work. You say color colon one of those. And if you're wondering what those F's mean and why that's like that, yeah, they're called hex codes, and you can look up like CSS hex color codes. Well, not godes, color codes. Like the whole thing, you type the color white thing. Oh, you want somebody to copy and paste this whole deal here? Like that little snippet of CSS. Twitch chat's not the best for formatting code, but there you go. Yeah, so you can actually look up the codes, and there's color pickers and stuff and various tools. I don't know if Visual Studio Code has one. That's probably a plugin for it, where you can just like pick a color, do sliders and stuff. You can also use like an eyedropper to, there's a color on the screen, I want to use that. So like if you notice the background of this link down here, that's the Twitch purple, because I just use an eyedropper and hovered over like the Twitch icon and grabbed it. So that goes in the body, correct. You can put it in body, or what I did with here is star. So it depends on what you want to do, right? Because body and star mean two different things. You know what I'm going to do here for you? I'm going to go and put this in paste bin right quick, so you can have the whole thing. You know what? Even better than paste bin, JS Fiddle, because it'll render it for you too. So I'm going to paste the HTML right in there and run it. And there you go. And then I'm going to save this and give you the link. So you can see the whole thing, and you can play with it there yourself there, Pokemon Black Gamer. This is probably what I should have done in the first place, instead of creating a file and stuff. But there you go. So that's a helpful tool, by the way, for collaboration and trying things out as JS Fiddle. I mean, it's obviously meant for JavaScript and stuff, but HTML and CSS work fine in there too. All right. That's what I always say. There's no such thing as a stupid question here. Ask away. That was completely a tangent, but totally open to helping out anyone who has questions like that. Starting to lose my voice a little bit. That's okay. I've got about 15 minutes left in the stream today, and then we'll go find someone to raid. Let's see how much further I can get into this. So I kind of like this scan consistency, and I mentioned before there was a sub page for scan consistency. It looks like that did not come forward in the update of the docs, which is fine. It's still included here in the page. That's just a really important concept. Because when I first started to write for my very first job interview with Couchbase, not the first one, but like we did like an all-day interview with the various people at Couchbase, and one of the things they wanted me to do was write a simple demo app and a presentation and things like that. And this is something that I did not understand when I wrote the demo app. Like I was not seeing the consistency. I was experiencing it was performant, but it was not consistent. And so that was really biting me. So I need to understand that. What part of that code would make the text white? And where would I put it? Sorry, I'm very new. That's okay. It's totally fine. So the part back over in JS Fiddle, what we're doing is, notice that this is in the style area here. So we've got HTML. We've got this head. Inside head, we've got this style. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Inside the style, anything inside style here, this is known as CSS. This is a CSS language. Cascading Style Sheets, what that stands for, CSS. And so CSS has a whole system of specifying what you want. Oh, that's cool. I'm like sort of swimming in tomato soup. Ooh. a whole different language of how to specify styles, which is colors and layout and size and fonts and all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying I want everything in body to follow these rules. So I want the background color to be tomato, and I want the color, the foreground color basically, to be white. So this is what makes, all of that together makes the text on this page white. Okay, and then notice here's the body itself. So this is what I'm saying. Everything in the body, everything in here needs to have a background color of tomato and a color of white. Now notice the link itself, the browser has determined that, yeah, you gave me this rule, but I still want the text to be blue unless you specify some other way. You can override that, but the browser is taking over and saying, okay, everything's white except for links. And that's why if I change this to star, this will, whoa, that's different. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, but body is probably what you really want. So you can put it here in the style, like literally in line like this. You can also create a separate file. It's like link rel, I think, something like that. Style.css. I don't remember the exact syntax for this. Something like this, type equals style sheet. So you can have all this CSS in a separate file. And that is where your whole website would come into play. So you don't want to have to copy and paste this style into every single HTML file. So you'd have a separate CSS file here that you could reuse from page to page to page. Let's see if that's the right syntax. Link. What is it? Style sheet. Oh, crying out loud. Yeah, there you go. Oh, it's href. Link rel equals style sheet, href equals. Yeah, sorry. Href equals. Oh, shoot. What was it? Rel equals style sheet. There you go. Now I don't have a separate file in this case, but that's the syntax for it right there. If you had a separate style.css file. All right, gotta go move some cows later. What? Do you have a farm? Are you literally moving cows? Or are you going to play like, I don't know, farming simulator or something? Anyway, thanks for stopping by, J.R. Lawthorne. I appreciate it. Thank you for the feedback and working with me on this. Really appreciate being here. 18 acres, so not a farm. Okay, so you have livestock. You have literal livestock. I would consider that a farm. Only 4 cows. That's like 1,000,000 times more cows than most people have. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. You're just moving them so you have more to eat. I've got a 1/2 acre, and some people treat it like it's as big as a farm. And I treat it as a grass farm. I consider myself a grass farmer. But anyway, cool. Thanks for hanging out, J.R. Lawthorne. Lawhorn. I don't know how you say it. It's the correct. I keep saying Lawthorne. That's what comes out of my mouth, but I think it's Lawhorn. Or something like that. Do you have a way to contact you about other stuff? Email, etc.? Yeah. Absolutely. Matthew.groves@couchbase.com. Not couchbase.co. Matthew.groves@couchbase.com. You're free to contact me any old time you want to. I know we try to have a conversation on Gitter, and I'm just not on Gitter as much as I should be. But yeah, always email me there. Okay. We have 10 minutes left. Let's see how much I can get through here. I hope that helps, Pokemon Black Gamer. And you're welcome to come back next time I stream. Ask more questions. Happy to help. Okay, so let's see if these make sense. Nickel query using the default not bounded scanning consistency. So it's already telling us some information here. Not bounded is default. Will not wait for any indexes to finish updating before running the query and returning results, meaning that results are returned quickly, but the query will not return any documents that are yet to be indexed. This kind of doesn't really say it directly, but indexing is performed asynchronously. It's Couchbase. So that's kind of what we're saying here. We're not really saying that directly. This can be set to request plus. All document changes and index updates are processed before the query is run. Select this when consistency is always more important than performance. For middle ground, AT plus is, or at plus, I don't know how you say it, is a read your own write option, which means it just waits for the new documents that you specify to be indexed rather than an entire index of multiple documents. Scan consistency. Scan consistency. This is a at plus example, I guess. Okay. That's weird. It's still mentioning a ticket. That probably can go. So AT plus read your own write example. Let's see if this works. There's no collection specified here. So collection equals cluster dot. Shoot, I need to get bucket first. Bucket equals a wait cluster dot buckets async and travel sample. Why not? And collection equals a wait bucket dot default collection. Is that asynchronous? It's not. Okay. And travel sample t dot type equals 1 and you know what, I'm going to make this user this time. Now, so mutation state from mutation results, okay, and then I want to write it back out probably. So something very much like this, right? And it's just going to be name. Yep. This will be Mike. That's where that Mike probably came from earlier. Yeah, there's Mike. So, kind of the weird thing. Yeah, this should be lowercase u, I think. To be consistent with travel sample. The weird thing, can you make background red and text white? You got a pastebin example. Let's look at it here. Background red and text white. So here you've got this. I'm going to go over JS Fiddle. So this is the HTML that you gave me. Okay, so in head, again, I would put a style in here. And I would say body. This is basically what I was doing, right? Body. And the background color, we could just make it red. And color would be white. And I was using tomato instead of red, but yeah, basically the same concept. So that's all I did, was I added that style there. So I'll give you that JS Fiddle. There you go. That is an eye-destroying web page, by the way. I am having a hard time looking at it, which is why I think tomato would be a better choice. Much softer red, but there you go. Yeah, same concept. Just you can switch this to whatever color you want to, right? It can be a hex code. I can put in a random code here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's going to be some sort of dark bluish navy blue color, right? Or 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's some sort of brown. So that's whatever color you want to put in there, that's where you plug it in. Okay. So the weird thing with this is that the weird thing about scan consistency is that here's how you do it with AT Plus, right? But even if you didn't use AT Plus, it still might work. It still might return mic just because of race conditions the way they are. Likely not going to because it's so quickly right after the insert. Thank you so much for helping with my project. No problem, Pokemon Black Gamer. What project are you working on, by the way? Is this something for school, or are you working on some sort of, looks like something Marvel-based there? Some sort of superhero thing? What you working on? Some sort of movie review site? But race conditions are really could mess this up, right? So you could get lucky and not use AT Plus and still beat the race. But yeah, you need to make a movie review. Okay, cool. What movie are you reviewing? Is it just Avengers, or are you working on some other movie? I like movies, so be curious to see how your project's going. I'm gonna go offline here in probably 5 minutes or so. But yeah, well, you're welcome to come back in the next stream, which will be Thursday at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and tell me how it's going. And if you have more questions, you're welcome to come back and ask, and I'll do my best. Like I said, with CSS, my knowledge is pretty limited, but I can try to help you work through it, or at least point you to the right direction. And you may also want to follow my colleague here, HTTP Junkie, who probably knows a little more about CSS and styles and front ends than I do. But that's another person you can check out his streams and ask him questions as well. So one thing I'm not seeing here is an example of...
Bing, bada boom.
Oh, hey, thank you for the follow, Pokemon Black Gamer. Appreciate that. Is a examples of not bounded and an example of Request Plus. Like, shouldn't those be in here too? I mean, those are much simpler than the AT Plus. I think those should be in there. And this may be old. This has been resolved. So I'm going to just remove that, I think. All right, well, we've got about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to shut it down, and we're going to go do a quick raid skis. Anybody have any suggestions about who to raid? Now is the time. We got C# Fritz still going. I'm guessing he's probably going to close up pretty soon. He's been streaming for a while. We got Full Stack Live. We got Josh Kupka.
Ballsy mommy, quick, I need help. Yep.
That looks like a commercial. Marco Bruno Dev. That looks like a non-English stream, which is totally cool.
Like it. Okay, so I didn't...
We're going to raid Full Stack Live. So, thank you everybody for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you're going to raid with me, please copy this over, especially if you're a subscriber, and paste that over there in Full Stack Live's channel as we go over. Thank you very much, everybody, for following me. Thank you for the follow, Pokemon Black Gamer. And KC8PDR, you followed recently. Thank you for that follow. I appreciate that. I'll see you all again on Thursday. And I hope you all have a good day.
Yep, on my way.